In this Monster Hunter Rise review, we'll take an in-depth look at Capcom's action RPG for Nintendo Switch, reveal new content, what it adds to the series, and suggest whether it's worth your time and money from the perspective of a longtime player who is not necessarily hardcore. If you are a fan of Monster Hunter World and want to know how Rise stacks up, watch on to find out. Monster Hunter Rise features the village of Kimura that has been besieged by a calamity known as the Rampage for over 100 years, leading townsfolk to hone their battle arts and prepare defenses around the perimeter. You are a new and aspiring hunter, raising your rank in the Hunters Guild and hoping to make a name for yourself as you take on every threat to your hometown. Along the way, you will meet colorful but one-dimensional characters who cheer you on your journey to max rank. The story element has never been the main attraction of Monster Hunter games. While the overall universe of the series has interesting lore and engaging monster and species details, most players skip past the dialogue as quick as they can and don't think too deeply about the possible plot holes that abound. In Monster Hunter Rise's case, there is enough there so that the overall progression and happenings are rather more interesting than Monster Hunter World was, and some players will enjoy this aspect better than in previous entries. NPC dialogue is available via chit-chat, and lore notes marked as notebook entries add further context to the world and can be discovered by exploring the several areas in strenuous detail. Monster Hunter Rise is, as are all Monster Hunter games, focused on gameplay. This was actually my first Nintendo Switch title, so I struggled with the controls for a while, but once grooved in, I came out of my 90 hours of gameplay with the feeling that somehow, the gameplay of Rise was superior to that of Monster Hunter World. Why is that so? Well, there are a few reasons. The wire bug is a replacement to World's Clutch Claw that improves on the concept and adds fluidity and execution mastery to combat, but also expands exploration in new and unexpected ways. I would normally not fuss too much over discovering every nook and cranny of a locale, but the wire bug enticed me to travel to new heights and claim the highest peaks, which is a very welcome and satisfying addition to expeditions. In combat, the wire bug completely changed the way I handled my longsword, from allowing me to increase my spirit gauge without having to complete a lengthy combo, to introducing a really fantastic parry and riposte system, and of course giving me quick outs of difficult situations via vertical jumps or even in-air hovering. The wire bug won me over quickly, and I felt that the longer multiplayer intended quests were not as much of a chore to do solo due to the highly entertaining mix and match of combos it added to the game. Additionally, using wirebug skills fills an unseen gauge that will eventually allow you to ride monsters and use them to deal massive damage to other monsters, or force them to run into walls until they knock themselves down. Monster riding is a fun, engaging, and strategic mechanic that adds depth and a surprise element to turf wars, or a reason to lure a monster to another monster. The new Palamutes are a great improvement on Monster Hunter World's ride mechanic, and they allow you to traverse the map much faster while preserving your stamina and even execute actions like gather, sharpen, etc. But they are not just for show. Palamutes can also join you in combat with 3 equipment slots and several mix and match skills that unlock as you level them up. Palicos are of course a feature of the game, and their precious feline actions will continue to captivate the audience as they have the entire series. You can now recruit up to 35 buddies that you can design and name, as well as choose specializations such as healer, bombardier, etc. I found the AI for the Palicos better than previous titles, and I specifically like that they give you a heads up whenever a monster is ready for capture. Buddies that are not with you on a quest can go out in Meowcenary campaigns to get you loot from monsters, may go on submarine expeditions to gather special materials, or can be at the dojo leveling up while you quest. Overall, managing buddies and their equipment is a fun activity, and I enjoyed hiring them and decking them out in as many sets as I could craft. Another new mechanic is that endemic life, such as paratoads, can be captured and used on monsters around the map. So if you see a poison toad in Sector 1, you can grab it and then use it on the monster spotted in Sector 8. I was actually surprised to see just how fun and effective these little helpers were. One single blast toad, for example, will actually knock down a fully enraged Rajam. And of course, the Stink Minx can be used to allure a monster to another one to trigger a turf war and facilitate some monster riding, if you're into that sort of thing. I wasn't sure what to expect in regards to loot with Rise, as for some reason I associated the Nintendo Switch with a smaller production. This is not the case, and at 90 hours in, I have yet to discover some materials, and I just unlocked my final weapon. There is a great variety of armor and weapons as well as the buddy equipment to handle, but there are also craft-on-demand decorations, special ramp-up effects for your weapons, and multi-skill talismans to improve your build with too. If you were satisfied with the customization and world, then you will hands down love Rise as well. A new type of repeatable random quest called a Rampage quest provides a new way to play against familiar monsters. Set up like a pseudo-tower defense game, you'll be tasked with setting up automated and manual installations that are used to repel hordes of monsters. I found this aspect of the game very awkward to begin with, but after I understood the mechanics, I found it a pleasant break from the usual hunts. Rampage quests feature many different monsters in quick succession, and while you need to use the provided artillery to ensure you defeat all the waves, you'll still get to fight against the challenging leaders of the pack with a special mechanic called Counter Signal. This effect boosts your damage significantly to the point one of my encounter slashes did 2,000 damage to one of the apex versions of a monster at Endgame. That's nothing next to the 7,000 the Wyvern Fire did, but it did feel really good. Overall, the Rampage quests are a lot of fun to do in multiplayer and will provide you with materials for many different monsters as well as valuable weapon ramp-up tickets to boost your equipment with. It's kind of like the Guiding Landstorm world on steroids in some ways. Monster Hunter recycles its main enemies as is expected, but they always add new and innovative ones as well. In this regard, I was overall satisfied with the variety, and I feel that the design of them is along the lines of what any Monster Hunter player would expect. That said, while I think that Xeno'jiiva and Safi'jiiva were great boss designs, get ready for a completely new and exciting boss experience in Monster Hunter Rise. One boss took me 30 minutes to kill by myself, but I honestly don't think I've enjoyed a hunt that much in ages. I don't want to spoil too much, but you're in for a wild ride. Monster Hunter Rise is, as are all the Monster Hunter games, about the replayability and multiplayer and an ongoing endgame via updates. The low-rank portion of the game can be completed via solo village quests, and then you'll graduate to high-rank hub quests intended for multiplayer. I completed all the content solo, so you should not be put off if you feel you won't have others to play with, as there wasn't a multiplayer wall per se. You will likely finish the main story at around 40 hours, but you're looking at 70 plus to complete other content and many more if you want to unlock all weapons and armor, and discover all the secret notes hidden in each map. Replayability is boosted via the Rampage quest as they add an element of randomness that is somewhat missing from previous Monster Hunter games. Additionally, multiplayer can be done via lobbies or by joining random quests, so you have the option to look for a team of 4 and set out together, or join an in-progress adventure from others. The multiplayer aspect of the game wasn't fully open during the review period, so I had limited chances to test it, but I didn't experience disconnects or significant lag. It was a lot of fun to join 3 other hunters and their main buddies so that all 8 of us could gang up on a monster, and I certainly noticed the buffs to the hunting horn. That is now a popular weapon. Another aspect of multiplayer that is certainly worth mentioning is that difficulty is now dynamic and it adapts to the amount of players currently in the quest. This means that if a player leaves your quest, it will not stay as difficult as it was with the other players in. That's a welcome change, to say the least. Endgame is focused on completing challenging Apex Monster Rampage quests, but it is clear from the abrupt ending to the story that the game will have DLC. Additionally, the weapon trees end in a similar manner with a question mark, letting you know that there is more content coming. The design of Monster Hunter Rise is among my favorite in the series. I was not a huge fan of the Jurassic feel of Monster Hunter World, where everything was gigantic and the hunters seemed misplaced in a world made for much larger creatures. Komura Village is endearing and detailed, if small, and everything within the game matches its theme. The aesthetic choices may not be everyone's cup of tea, but they did work for me and I very much enjoyed the variety of armor and weapon design, and the multiple outfits for my buddy team. In regards to visuals and performance, this is unfortunately a Switch-only title until PC launches in 2022, which means you're locked at 1080p and under 30 FPS. This was really difficult for me as I have gotten spoiled by 4K and 60 FPS, and particularly since World's graphics were top-notch. I struggled and pondered the viability of my eyesight as I saw pixelated everything on my large screen, so for those of you not used to Switch titles, this is something you may want to be ready for. Eventually, I got used to the poor graphics, and the game's other points more than made up for the console's shortcomings. But if graphics and FPS are an issue for you, you may want to wait for PC release. The audio track, on the other hand, is remarkably good. While I'm not a fan of the main screen song and I skip out of it as fast as possible, the tunes of Komura Village and the many locales are relaxing and a thematically good fit for the game. Similarly, I really enjoyed the individual tunes for the monsters and the overall audio production is quite good. Monster Hunter has still not gotten around to fully voiced dialogue, but this time around your own character will have a voice. The frequency of this can be regulated, but I suggest you leave it on and get used to it, as your character will give you audio cues for important events such as monster aggro or rage attacks before they happen, which can save your hide more than once. Final thoughts. In all honesty, I went into Monster Hunter Rise curious about the game, but not as excited as I was for Monster Hunter World. I come out the Rare 7 side with a shocking realization that I actually like it more than World, even though the console I had to play it on has technological limitations that hurt the title. Monster Hunter Rise has an addictive quality and more RPG elements than its larger brother and is designed in such an endearing and detailed way that I found myself more attached to my Palico and Palamute and more interested in NPC interactions. What initially started as a let's see how it goes quickly became a I can't wait to get to my Switch situation, and I am honestly so excited to join everyone else on their hunts and be able to tackle some of these harder monsters with a team. So, should you buy Monster Hunter Rise? I actually bought a Nintendo Switch to play it, and as it stands, I do not regret it one bit, and I can see myself getting excited to see the story evolve and take on more monsters, craft new weapons and armor, and make new hunter friends. The game provides content and entertainment well worth its $60 USD price tag. Monster Hunter Rise releases March 26th on Nintendo Switch, with PC arriving in early 2022.